Kunos have updated Assetto Corsa on Friday with yet another Lotus, the Lotus Exige 240R. Now I'm going to do some laps in this car, but I'm going to make sure it's on the S2 package edition. S3, it's not S2, it's S3 package edition, because it has a nicer skin and I believe it's slightly better than the default one. So, before I get onto the track, I'm going to go through my settings because some people are asking, oh, how do you have Assetto Corsa set up? Now, my graphics settings are fairly standard. I'm just using a GTX 760, so I don't have a beast of a computer. It's an i5 2500K with a GTX 760 and 8GB of RAM. As for the controls, G25, all default, set on 900 degrees of rotation. One thing I really like to do is on the brake gamma, make sure that's linear, because for me it's horrible if there's a curve going into the brake. I like it all to be nice and linear, makes it a lot easier to drive. And for the force feedback settings, I like to move the curb effect and road effects down because they don't really add that much to the actual feel of the car. They're quite nice effects, but they don't do much. But the slip effect, depending on the car, sometimes it's nice to have it higher, sometimes lower. It's fine with none at all, but I find you can get a better feel for the mass and weight of the car if you fiddle around with the slip effect, but it does depend car on car. Hopefully in the future they'll have car specific force feedback settings in this game. As for gain, I put it on 100%. Logitech profilers are pretty standard stuff, no dampening, no centering spring, and everything on 100% and 900 degrees rotation. So that's all very simple. Now let's jump in with this car. I'm just going to do, let's do a race. Let's do a quick race with this car. Okay, so jumping onto the Silverstone short track for a quick race. Let's see what this is like to drive. Car interior looks really nice, and of course we've been on Silverstone before. Really nicely modelled track, using laser scan data, which is always awesome. And I didn't put the car in gear at the start. Win a prize there. Okay. It's not exactly an incredibly fast car. Feels a lot like the other Lotuses in the game, actually. The first corner feels like a Lotus. That's probably because it is a Lotus. Oh, that in real life that probably would have destroyed my engine. Let's try and be a little bit smoother. The AI crawling through these corners. Now the force feedback seems quite nice and weighty. I can feel the weight of the car moving around. This car, to be honest, is a bit slow and sluggish for my general preferences. But it's too early to cast a verdict. Oh, it'll step out a bit if you egg it. But in a very forgiving and predictable way, which we're generally familiar with in Assetto Corsa. The sounds, it does sound exactly like the other Lotus, and again maybe they've used the same sound files. I mean, I don't really like how this car sounds, but it's not exactly a top of the class race car, so I guess you wouldn't expect it to sound that beastie. But I've sat in a real world Lotus, and it's more engaging than this, and that was a Lotus Elise. And I assume this car's got a better, what would be a more noisier engine. And oh, getting a bit of a slide there. It does seem to have very similar profile to the Lotus Elise. This track's a bit flat though, so it'd be interesting to try on a track like Imola, or any track with hills on it. It gets a little bit squirmy on brakes, and the front is a little bit understeery if you go into a corner too hot, as you'd expect with most cars. There's no real big surprises with this. I mean, it's a fairly predictable car. It's the English sandwich of a car. 2 bits of bread and a bit of ham in the middle. And the wrong gear. It's a bit shameful that I'm struggling to keep up with the AI, given that normally the AI are terrible. Although Kunos have improved the AI a bit, I think. They didn't seem to pile into each other at the start. The grid seems spaced out in a reasonably realistic way. I think AI changes were one of the main things that they've been working on recently. I really would prefer this car if it had more power for the rear. As it is, it's a bit of a sloppy car. I mean, in real life, if you were driving this in real life, I'm sure it'd be a really nice experience. You know, you'd have the G-forces pushing on you. You'd be able to feel a lot more, and it'd be far more exciting. But in a simulator, I find you have to drive a lot faster cars to get a bit of a thrill from it, because you haven't got those. Well, it's just not as good as it would be in real life. I think for faster laps, it's going to be a case of this very much drive in the same way that you'd approach the original Lotus that was in the tech demo. You really just have to get your corners really smooth and get the angle spot on at the start. So I guess it's a really good car for people that are just starting out with sim racing. I don't think it doesn't really educate you in throttle discipline though, because you can stick your foot on it and the back end's not going to come out too much unless you throw the car into the corner. You dab the brake to get the back end out a bit. It's all really slow. It's like a bloody road car. I mean, in some ways, I find these types of cars a lot harder to get to speed with because they're so slow in communication. I don't know. I think if you've got a faster car, a more rigid race car, it immediately tells you, oh, this is where you're going wrong, or this is where you need to get time. This is so slow. It's like you can't really. It's really hard to discern. Other than you know, you're not going through the corners smoothly. It's really hard to discern if you've actually nailed a lap or not. So, not my cup of tea. But not a bad car. I mean, I can't spot anything particularly wrong with it. I can see how cars like this give people the impression that Assetto Corsa is too easy. But then again, I assume this car is quite easy to drive in real life. Maybe not easy to get a really fast lap in, but easy to just poodle around. So that's the Lotus Exige 240R Stage 3 package. Not the most exciting updates. The car model's really nice and the car skins are really nice, but in terms of handling, it's not my cup of tea. It's not broken. It's not wrong. It's just not working. I'm afraid this relationship is probably going to end here, and I doubt, unless this car miraculously ends up being popular online, I doubt I'm going to be spending much time with it. But that was the Lotus Exige Stage 3. And Kunos' latest update. The AI definitely seems to be more improved. I'm going to try some other faster cars and see, because normally with them the differences in the AI is more noticeable. So I'm going to test that out and see what it's like. I might do some hot lapping as well, because I need to do some some people have told me that I need to go to sim racing school, so I'll do some hot laps and see where I can come on the leaderboard. But thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it's enjoyable. Subscribe and like and all that business.